Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously, it's a race against time as Nixley, as well as the Super Friends, are trying to find the totem, and obviously they learn from a Kryptonian witch, which, I mean, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. I mean, there was like the Dark Kryptonian, so Kryptonian witch shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Vita ends up pointing out that basically there's rules to the totems. They have to be gotten in a certain order. You have to pass a test. Basically, if you fail that test, it's a whole issue. There's also like an emotional price that has to be paid for getting the totem. So first and foremost, like, I love that, like, Mitch set up this whole situation so that Nixley could steal it, but then, like, she just kind of did a smash and grab, and it's like, oh, miscalculation on his part. I'm like, how was it a miscalculation? Like, he gave you a window to steal it, but it's like you just straight up just, like, smash and grab. I'm sure that wasn't part of the plan. But Supergirl and the others showed up in time, and to stop Nixley from using the totem, she, like, lasers it, and it splits in half. Each one of them got half, but then, like, the magic radiates and hits everyone else. And so every time they take the test and fail, the magic, the fifth dimensional energy from it radiates out. Which, speaking of fifth dimensional energy, Lena is back. Doesn't really want to talk about the Newfoundland situation just because I involve admitting about the magic and stuff like that. It's like, right, that's a lot to process, especially learning about what her mom was involved in and everything, and just like the issues that kind of stem from all that. But it's like, nah, but I'm not even going to go down that route because it's even later on being like, right, like, are we sure there's such thing as magic? I mean, maybe it's just science that we don't understand yet. And it's a conversation I had in a previous episode where I talked about how certain iterations of the fifth dimensionals will just straight up be like, oh, their power is magic, while other iterations will kind of lean more towards it being like super advanced technology. So that is such an like, I don't know if that's necessarily where they're going, but it's just like Lena has a hard time believing in magic. It's like because she believes in the science of everything, which I'm like, once again, it's like considering everything that's going out there in the world, all that's there, all that exists. I mean, you haven't had much interaction with them, but the legends have dealt with magic on multiple occasions, so like it's not that crazy. But it's like Lena is science, and it makes a lot of sense because, like, I think to make sense of the world, she's always leaned into the science, It's like, yeah, she believes, like, she's like, oh, but even, like, the most impossible things, like, even the most, yeah, like, everything that's happened with Kara, it's like, yeah, but it's science, it's not magic, it's like an alien, and there's a scientific reason why, like, basically explain, like, how she has her powers and everything. So there's always a science rationale to everything, at least for Lena. And I think that's just her way of coping with the world and dealing with it, is that she could always trust when a lot of the world is uncertain. At least for her, science is always certain. There's a certainty in it. Like, she's found comfort in that. So I mean, it's actually very befitting of her character to be the reluctant person when it comes to science. When it comes to magic. But I think it's so interesting, the test that Kara takes and versus Nixley's. Both of theirs, like her dealing with it's like, right, the point of the courage test is the time you lacked courage. And it's two different, like for Nixley, it was when her coup failed and her father had her brother arrest her. Her brother got praised as like, right, staging the coup. Oh, it's so amazing. But my daughter, betraying your own father, you disgust me. It's like, the whiplash on that, like, I'm so proud of you, son. I can't believe you, daughter, for doing the exact same thing I'm praising your brother for. It's like, Jesus, that whiplash is crazy. Like, we knew that was a circumstance, but just to see it play out, it's like, don't break your neck with that whiplash. But Kara's is the first time she was Supergirl, and for her, she interpreted it as like, right, when I saved Alex's plane, and she's like, right, I remember, there was a call for help, but I didn't go help the person because I was too afraid of, like, being seen. She helps the person out, and it's like, right, having the courage to do that, but it's like, nope, she failed. And Nixley failed the first time because she tried to kill her dad. Mitch actually suggested to Nixley, like, right, how, it's easy to kill the person you hate. It's harder to, like, kill the person you love. And it's like, he was suggesting, like, right, rather than killing your father, maybe you're supposed to kill your brother. I mean, he is the one that betrayed you, but for her, it's like, I could never hurt him, But despite everything, Kara wasn't able to kind of pass her test, but ultimately Nixley was, because the totem is about the courage to be vulnerable. And Nixley opened up to her brother about what he did. It's like, I did die. She's like, you destroyed me. You destroyed everything when you betrayed me, because like, you weren't just my baby brother. Like, I practically raised you. You know, you were my best friend. You were my loyal friend. You were so much like what his betrayal did to her, and being vulnerable in that, not just like giving into her anger, but, digging deep into like where that anger stems from. And I think when you take that with what happened with Kara, my interpretation of why she didn't pass, it's because her very nature of like, she didn't have the courage, I guess, to be vulnerable, to be like, to be seen. Like, it's because it comes with the superhero thing of like, right, I gotta hide my identity. But like, I don't know. Like, that was what I feel like could be interpreted. Like, maybe Kara will eventually find out why she couldn't pass the trial. But I'm curious, like, that's what my interpretation of it was. Like, was it that she didn't have the courage to be out front and center? Like, the fact that she hid. That's like, or maybe, no. I was thinking that it's like, no, the time you lacked courage is like, I guess it's like when not in realizing, not being like, it's about being vulnerable and realizing like, oh no, I was about to say, it's like she's vulnerable enough on a lot of occasions to admit, like, because like the vulnerability, like the courage brought out different things in everybody, because the moment everyone failed the test, like it did something. Like Alex, who's usually kind of a realist, becomes super like dangerously optimistic and runs straight into the fire. John, who's usually the very like rational person in his own right, like he's more has the courage to, be more open with his feelings, but because of that, he's not the quick-witted person. Brainy, the Kaluan, like they had the courage to do the one thing a Kaluan can never be, and that's to be miscalculating. And I love that Brainy was so disgusted. He was like, "Wait, so you're telling me this entire time I've been guesstimating?" And I think it does speak volumes that the only two people who were unaffected were Kara and Lena. Kara, because she was at the epicenter of it, because she's the one taking the trial, so I think it didn't have an effect on her. To be fair, I mean, you would think it would affect her the most out of anybody, but I guess it's because, like, she ended up picking up the piece, so, like, it kind of puts her at the epicenter. Like, the moment she touched it, it's like, right, she has to be the one to take the trial. I wonder, is it going to be a situation where different people take the different totem tests, or is it just going to be Kara all the way through, just like it's going to be Nixley all the way through? Probably. But Lena, I'm assuming just because, like, magic doesn't work against magic, like, she kind of has, like, an innate magical barrier that kind of protected her. That's what I'm curious about. Because it's interesting, because, like, there was a whole point that Nixley was making, like, right, you control courage, you control fear. So maybe, like, there's two sides of that. Like, having the courage, because you're afraid of, like, when you're afraid of something, having the courage to do something. And, like, so in Nixley's case, it was having the courage to be vulnerable, And so that's why I'm like, so with the way it's, but it obviously, like, how it manifested in other people, like, that's why I'm not sure how to interpret Kara's test. Was it purely like not having the courage to not hide away, to like embrace it? Like, because she did feel some like scaredness from it, because she saved the day, but she immediately took off because like she didn't want to be seen. And then I guess maybe on some level there's like a deeper recess to that. Like because like with Nixley, like I said, like it's about her vengeance, her anger, but there was something deeper to the core of just like being vulnerable about what her brother did to her. And so like that begs the question, like what is like at the core of that for Kara? Was it just kind of, she was not having the courage to just, because afterwards she did like hide herself away after, maybe it's just because like being at the forefront and center, like I don't know, like it baffles me, and I'm so curious because I think the show will eventually explain like what went wrong. Like I guess because it's kind of up to you to kind of interpret, and I just feel like I'm not 100% getting like what that was for Kara. So maybe we'll get the answer eventually. But I do like, obviously, like it's all about how the totem affected other people too. Like people turned into like full blown brawls. I love that the lizard turned into a dragon. And I love that, like, John just being, open with his emotions. He's like, God, I'm so proud of you. To the amazing women that you've grown into. And he's like, Mr. Dragon, can I talk to you for 2 minutes? Just 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. And it's just kind of like, oh, like, and he's just being like, just like how encouraging he is, and there's just like no filter to it. Nia, we didn't get really resonate with it, but basically she had the courage to go into a deep dream like she's never done before. So William had, like, he's dealing with, like, ever since like obviously you have Andrea kind of breathing on his neck of, like, right, he hasn't really done the Super Friends thing he's supposed to. Like, she's like, where's the reporter I kind of knew? Like, where is he at? And that's because William hasn't really gotten out there like he used to, because on some level he's like, right, I never, like, realized it, but, like, this courage told him, basically made him kind of face, like, the trauma of, like, dealing with the Eve situation. He actually hadn't even read the article about it. He never really realized, like, he kept working and just, like, finding other stuff to kind of bury on top of it. Like, so he buried it so deep. So I think that in itself could be, I think that's what it is in everyone's regard of, like, everyone's, like, for, you know, Brainy, like, having the courage to be wrong because he fears, being wrong at a time when it matters most. But I think for Alex, she wants to have the courage, you know, because she's afraid, you know, she wants to be able to brave any storm kind of alone. Like, she wants to have the courage to do that. But it kind of ties into, interestingly enough, like with, like when it came to saving the day, Kelly was there for her, and it's like, right, like, it's not just me figuring stuff out about me, is what Kelly says. She says, it's about me figuring out not just what I want as Guardian, but you and me, like, you know, as partners on the battlefield, on the front lines, but also, like, us together. It's just Kelly and Alex, because I love you, you know? So, I think you can kind of extrapolate a little bit from that. Obviously, I skipped over it, but I love the whole thing of Vida possessing Brainy and just being like, what are these, his nipples? And just like his, like, her mannerisms and stuff like that, and just her, like, the cackling, like, ha 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 ha, you have to face it alone. Yeah, man. Just like you wouldn't expect that from a Kryptonian witch, like some fragments of a Kryptonian witch. It's like so interesting. I mean, to be fair, it's like we saw that with Jor-El, like how much of his personality was still alive in the crystals. So, like, I mean, it encompasses everything that you are, personality and all that. So it's just like, but Vida could immediately, like, sense the witch inside of Lena, and it's like, right, science isn't going to be enough because magic goes beyond the laws of nature. So if Kara's going to, like, win this battle, like, to fight this magic, is like, maybe the aid of a powerful witch could end up helping her, but Lena's, like, scared to go down that route. But after all of this, she's ultimately willing to, like, go down, like, she opens up about everything. It's like, because it's like, Lena, do you really not believe in, like, magic? And it's like, for her, she believes in what she can see, and, like, you know, science to her is tangible in comparison to something like magic, which is just, I think it's just like believing in something that you can't, like, touch and feel, and just something that you can, like, there's some, like, rationale that you can apply to it. Like, magic kind of breaks all that for Lena, so that's kind of her struggle with it. I do apologize, I'm a little all over the place, but I do love that William was like, oh, like, he's going to embed himself amongst the Super Friends, you know, and Nia's just kind of like, that's not what I was. Okay, that's going to be awkward, because we had the whole secret identity thing. It'd be kind of interesting. I don't know if they do this, but it'd be interesting if they kind of did, like, a mockumentary type of episode where it's like Williams with the Super Friends as they're doing their thing, and, like, you just get the entire episode kind of like he's kind of like the camera perspective of it. Like, it'd be kind of interesting if they kind of did that with the episode, but, you know, just like him trying to talk to Kara. I mean, and maybe in a sense that will play into, like, you know, the courage thing, because, like, I think, yeah, she's vulnerable in some cases, but it is also the thing of, like, because I guess it's like well, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I think I've finally worked it out, because I was wondering if this was the case, but, like, because I said she is vulnerable, but she never ever wants to, like, be okay with failing is kind of it. She's never, because she's the girl of steel. Like, she's supposed to be, like, I'm supposed to be the one that's always got it locked down. Like, I'm supposed to be the hero. I'm not allowed to fail. I shouldn't fail. And that vulnerability, I think that's what it is, like, being vulnerable enough to be like, it's okay to fail. Like she regrets not saving that person that night, but it's okay that you fail, but you will never let, like, I think of coming to terms with that. It's like heroes falter and fail, but I think like she has a tendency to beat herself up about it, and rather than being like, right, like she gave Nia that advice, but I think it's just like, right, it's easy to get that advice, give that advice, it's just harder to like take. But that's what I'm saying, like it seems like she's kind of vulnerable about admitting her failures, but like maybe on some level she just doesn't, like she feels like she has to be super all the time, and it's like, no, you're fallible like anyone else, but she feels like she has to be, maybe like her recent situation with, I think that's where it means to be like vulnerable, because she's always got to be like on as the girl of Steel at any point in time, and it's like maybe this whole situation with William, like maybe him trying to be around the Super Friends will eventually get that vulnerability out of her, being vulnerable and being a little more open, that maybe she hasn't realized she's kind of kept something or some aspects of herself kind of closed away to some extent. I mean, maybe it also stems from like still like some level of what happened in the Phantom Zone still being there on some level. But because they did both take the test, and when the totem finally came back together as one, Nixley as well as Kara are now psychically linked. They can feel each other. So Kara can feel Nixley's anger and her vengefulness. But obviously Nixley can feel Kara's hopefulness. And it's like, that's so upsetting. It's like, no, we both took the test. Like, why am I kind of drowning in this pain because I took the test, and yet she isn't? She's still happy and hopeful. It doesn't make sense. But it's like, because she didn't pass the test. So for Nixley, it's like, right, my pain is the price. Because that would be the thing of like, you will pay an emotional price. Like, it will eventually stack up against you, because that much power, of course, it's going to come with a toll. So maybe that's what they're, so that seems like that's going to be the case of like, what's going, like, because I guess like maybe it shatters like the emotional pain, like you kind of, like you want all this power, it comes with a tremendous amount of pain, and that pain's just going to get worse on an emotional level until like it devastates you. Maybe the whole point is when you do get all the totems, like maybe it's going to numb you. It's going to be so much pain that it affects you on such an emotion, on every emotional level of just what each one of those totems represent, whether it's the courage, dream, truth, and stuff like that, that maybe all that weighing down. Like I said, I'm curious, are they going to make it, I would just, like I said, assume that Kara is going to take each one, but I think it would be pertinent if the rest of the team took the test as well, because I think that's going to be the thing of like, right, we're so in this together that it shouldn't and rely, and I think that's going to be the difference, is Nixley's going to take on all that emotional pain herself, where I think with the Super Friends, they might end up dividing it up if everyone ends up taking one of the totems, you know? Kind of like how, speaking of totems, because I didn't even think about it. Well, because I think I brought it up before about Vixen and stuff like that. But also, no, because I brought up the Paragons. But like, let's go back to Legends with the different totems, and they ended up coming together in season 3. So the different totems, like representing, you know. So maybe that's where things kind of stem from as well. It's going to be a similar thing of them coming together for the ultimate power type of situation. Like, I think that's going to be I think that might be the setup they go for with this, to show the difference between Kara, because Kara's not in this alone. She has her family, and maybe having the vulnerability of just like realizing she can't handle things on her own. Maybe that's going to be like the true test of courage for her. And then Nixley is going to try and take everything on herself, and that's going to be what ultimately, because Mixie's last word of like, right, like it's better to have like 2 against 1. Like, it's like having someone on the inside, that being Mixie, you know, so it's like, right, like, don't go at this alone, don't try to bear everything alone. I think that might be the point. Like I said, I'm still trying to rationalize it. That's my thought. We'll see whether that ends up actually being the case or not when it comes to Kara. But I'm wondering, are we going to get more of Vita now that they're setting up the whole situation of like, okay, she's going to Lena's going to go to her potentially for like more like witch training to a certain extent, to be like, right, I'm ready to kick this whole, I'll do whatever whatever tools I need access to, if it means like helping Kara in this coming fight, like magic or whatever it is, you know, having to come to terms with that. So maybe she'll go to Vita for some training and stuff like that. Or maybe, I hope it doesn't turn into a situation where Vita tries to possess Lena in the process. She'll probably try and possess Brainy, and it's just because Brainy obviously didn't like that one bit at all. But maybe it's like, maybe this time it's like, right, you need to, for the purpose of right, Lena getting help, and Vida needs a body. If she's going to, she probably won't cooperate unless she gets back in Brainy's body again. So we'll probably be dealing with that more in the future. We'll have to wait and see. It's definitely going to be really interesting to ultimately see how this all plays out going forward into the next episode. I mean, it's kind of crazy. This was episode 13. We've got, what, 7 left? Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think, like, it just the countdown to, like, you know, the final episodes. It's crazy just to be, like, on this side of things, you know, and realizing we've only got that many left. It's kind of going to, I think it's just going to be wild as we continue down, like I said, with these final episodes. But I'm interested to see where everything takes us next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.